Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Martin Falopino, but on YouTube, I am known as Dr. Debunk. Dr. Debunk debunks medical myths, garbage, and crap that's spread by doctors and other health professionals. Dr. Debunk, I created him to get Americans and my patients the right, truthful information about health and wellness. We call it optimal health training and education. And basically, as a reminder, the goal being to make you optimally healthy at all decades of life. Well, we've had a big interruption of that whole process with this COVID-19 pandemic. So today we're going to talk about that, specifically vaccines regarding COVID-19, but also the lockdown and some issues with that. Now, I've already done a couple videos. You should make sure you look at them. They're posted up on the YouTube. And I've talked about some of the other topics, infectivity, like social distancing, which is the number one thing you got to do. And you can get all that. Look at those videos. They're short. So to jump in, the first thing I'm going to talk about is the vaccine issue, because that's being talked about more and more now. Now, I have to say up front, I'm not against vaccines. We're going to have to do a little review of vaccines. Take a couple minutes. But I'm going to sound very negative about vaccines, but I'm not against them. What I'm against is the new ones and how they make them. So as a little review, back in the old days when there was dinosaurs, that's when I was a child, dinosaur days, all the vaccines were killed vaccines, polio, measles, mumps, rubella. They would take the virus and throw it in a blender, and then the pieces of the virus would stimulate you to make an immunity. And then they decided 20 years ago, I can't say for sure, to start making what's called live attenuated vaccines. And now some of the vaccines are live attenuated. Some I think are still killed, but I'm not up on it. But live attenuated means most of the vaccine's dead, or most of the virus is dead, but some of it's left alive to help the process of making you immune. And that's why when you get the flu shot, you can get the flu. There is live virus in there, but it's usually milder. And if anyone tells you that's not true, I'm sorry. I practiced 33 years before they even had the flu vaccine, and patients get the flu every year from it. But overall, the protection is what's supposed to be valuable. And then 15 or so years ago, they started genetically modifying vaccines. Now, most of you don't know that, but the newer vaccines now are all live attenuated genetically modified vaccines. Now, this is a problem. This is a problem not because the vaccine is bad for you. And I don't subscribe to the extreme conspiracy stuff that they're putting lead and arsenic in vaccines and vaccines can cause autism. There's no evidence to support that. And it'd be kind of stupid, really. I mean, come on. Even if you love conspiracy theories, and I kind of do. Not that I believe them all, but why would someone want to put lead in a vaccine? You could easily find it. It's $500 to check it. I mean, it's just, and the autism thing, there's just no evidence to support it. But what is of concern with the way they've modified vaccines, which makes me very leery about vaccines in general, is the live attenuated genetically modified. So what they're doing is adding extra genetic material, which is DNA, but it's really RNA. They're adding it to the virus because the manufacturers and the scientists say it makes the vaccine more effective. Now, here's the problem. I'm a doctor, so I ask the question that's obvious. How does it make the vaccine more effective? Guess what? You can't find an answer. Nobody wants to talk about it. What is the actual mechanism between a live attenuated genetically modified vaccine and a killed vaccine? Why do we need to do that in the first place? So that's a dilemma. But without getting into conspiracies about that, let's say it's true. They've made the vaccines more effective. The problem is no one's looking at the side effects. No one's looking at the possible interaction between these vaccines, but also, kids now by 5 years old are getting 30 vaccine shots. And by 18, it's probably double. So you're implanting DNA into the cells of our body and you don't know what it's doing. What's the possible side effect? Not the intended effect at all, but the side effects. They don't even know where the virus is going. So, and I can't even tell you what percentage of the virus is live. Is it 1%? Is it 0.1%? However much it is, that live virus is implanting into your cells, and it's adding extra DNA that's not the virus DNA at all. And it could interact with your DNA. It could interact with DNA of other viruses or other vaccines. And we don't know, and nobody knows. And here's the scary part. Nobody's looking at it. So why is that relevant? Well, it's relevant because now this COVID-19 thing has come along, and it's a pandemic worldwide. And so the obvious solution in the future is to make a vaccine against it. But you could bet your bottom dollar that the vaccine is going to be live attenuated, genetically modified. And they're going to bring it to the population as fast as they can. I have a real problem with that. I have major problems with rushing a vaccine to market. And they'll say that they're going to test it adequately. But I am concerned because that's not my experience with the medical community over the 33 years I've been a doctor. And here's why. You can cut corners with medical studies. You know, they need to extensively study vaccines. But they could, for example, skip some steps. Like in the old days, we would bring a new drug or vaccines to market, and they do a lot of rat studies. And then it would progress to higher mammal studies. You check it in dogs or monkeys. The problem with that is the expense. And so there's been a catastrophic example years ago where they skipped some steps with tuberculosis drugs and killed a bunch of people because the drug worked great in rats, but not in humans. And it actually sent shockwaves through the scientific community, but you never heard about it because you have to be a nerd and read the right nerdy papers. So if they skip too much, what will be the possible side effects of this vaccine? So I'm very concerned, and until they alleviate my concerns with real evidence that they've studied this, I can't recommend to anyone to get the vaccine because you don't know what it could do to you. And it's just something you don't mess around with. So again, I'm not against vaccines, but I think we need to get back to the basics here. We need to bring back simple vaccines, killed vaccines, stop all this interference, stop all this complexity of making a live attenuated, genetically modified vaccine. I don't think it's really necessary. So until they alleviate these concerns, you should look into it yourself. Really look into vaccines today. There are some real concerns, and I'm not talking about crazy people that think vaccines are causing autism or MS, multiple sclerosis. Anyway, that's it for that. Okay, let's move along to part 2, which was the medications. Talking about hydroxychloroquine and Z-Pax or Zithromax. Azithromycin. So we talked about this a little bit before, but there's been more information and data, so I wanted to go over it again because it's become very controversial. Everybody's talking about it from mainstream media to alternative media. And so what I wanted to do was to try to get to science, as much science as I could find. So, right here, see this? All this. This is everything I could pull off PubMed, the National Public Database, on published studies. And so there's a fair amount there now, and I went through all of it, but I've also gone way back. And if you go way back, this is quite a surprise to me. What was quite a surprise to me was that the very first time they studied hydroxychloroquine, or just quinine, and its possible effectiveness against viruses was 1965. Yeah, back in the Stone Age. 1964, 1965, 4 studies were done, and they showed that it was effective. In the year 2000, they did laboratory studies against herpes simplex virus 1 and 2. And then I can go on, but it's been known for quite a while that the anti-malaria drug quinine has some antiviral properties. but no one's really bothered to study it fully. And the Zithromax is different. Zithromax is a weird drug. It's supposed to work against bacteria. But that was shown to be partially effective against Ebola, and they've used it, but I didn't pull that work. But as just a little review, it's been known for a while that even though malaria drug, hydroxychloroquine, which shouldn't work against viruses at all, and Zithromax, a bacteria drug, which shouldn't work at viruses at all, does work. And that's what started all this. As the COVID thing got going, just to do a little history here, they finally were using it in South Korea, probably China, but I don't believe anything out of China, so I won't even talk about Chinese studies on anything. And then the famous thing with this got started about 2 months ago now, maybe 6 weeks at least, with the French study where they looked at 26 people and showed the effectiveness of it, blah, blah, blah. And so since then, the mainstream authorities have creamed this, and that little Dr. Fauci, who's been working in the infectious disease forever, he's against it overall, calling it anecdotal. And I talked about that already in the other video. You can go look at that. But I wanted to do an update because just today I went back and looked at, right here, all these studies that are more recent. And some of them are review studies trying to look at all the data that's been accumulated. Anyway, looking it all over again, the net result is this. Yes, these aren't large, well-controlled studies. Yes, the evidence is anecdotal. But when you have so much anecdotal, which just means doctors' personal experience, there's doctors who've been treating this with quinine and Z-Pak and talking about their results. And those are not controlled studies, and there's many flaws in them. There's no doubt about that. But the bottom line is there are so many, and there's so much evidence that it works. To say that these drugs don't have antiviral effects is false. It's a lie. And that is being propagated by mainstream media to a degree. All of them are trying to downplay it. And you can decide for yourself why they're doing that. But there is no question that there is an effective rate of viral killing, both in the test tubes in the lab and with real people. What's not clear is the age group that it's most effective at, the degree of success. Do you cure 50% of the people? How long does it take? What's the right dosages? That's not worked out, but there's no doubt these drugs work. So why am I saying that? Why does it matter? Well, because you're going to have to kind of be involved in your own health care here. So if you're over 50, even 60, and you start to get sick and it seems like it could be COVID to you, you need to get tested. And if you're positive, you need to bug your doctor or whoever to get these antibiotics and go on them because they are safe. We've used quinine for, my whole life, 65 years. It came out 1955-ish as a malaria drug. We've used quinine. There was a 20-year period in my career, all doctors were giving it for leg cramps. They still haven't figured that out, but quinine is great for nighttime leg cramps. Absolutely gets rid of them. And so I had patients for 10 years taking 200 milligrams a day every night. But then you start to see the side effects after that. So, and now we have modern muscle relaxers, so that doesn't happen. It's been used for other things. Obviously, in rheumatology, they use it extensively because it reduces inflammation. That's a whole other story. But the bottom line is, these drugs will help you. And you're only going to take them for a week or so. That seems what the treatment models run around. So there's really no possibility of major side effects. Now, to get to that, I'm starting to see that now. The side effect, these are dangerous. They can cause side effects. They can affect your heartbeat. That's true. There's some studies that show if you take it for a prolonged period of time, you can affect the way your heart electrical activity works. But not a week. There's one study I found that talked about that. It prolongs what we call, the QT interval. And the concern is, could it cause fast heartbeat? But this little study didn't show anybody that got that, even at the higher doses. So the side effects, and then Z-Paks. I mean, Zithromax, we've been given that for 25 years. In fact, we've given way too much. I don't even use Z-Paks hardly at all anymore. I see a 50% failure rate. My anecdotal evidence is that I don't want to prescribe it for sinus infections because half the time the patients come back complaining, hey, it didn't work, doc. Why doesn't it work? Z-Pak used to work. Well, because for 25 years we've given millions and millions of doses of this stuff, so all the germs are immune to it now. But because it's different, how it potentially works for COVID-19, it's a good way to go. You're only going to take it for a week. So I think the side effect thing is fake, unless you know you're allergic to one of these drugs or you had some pre-existing major cardiac issue. If you get the virus, you find the drugs and take them because you have really nothing to lose, And this is just my opinion. But again, it's based on all the science that I could find right here, not my opinion of it, So that's kind of an update on the drug therapies. I'm hoping the plan of the government is to, within a month from now, this is the end of April, that the testing at the end of May will be extensively available. You could drive through and get it. That if you're sick and positive for COVID, you could take the antibiotics. Anyway, that's it for this version, this session. I wanted to do another little part here. See, the main goal of Dr. Debunk, to get to the third part of this, is to get Americans the best truthful information about how to stay optimally healthy, which is outside the scope of medicine. Your family doctor, unless they've specifically studied the techniques that we've learned in health sciences that make people live longer, to make people extend their life and resist disease as much as you can, unless you've studied it, medicine can't do it. You can't live a longer life by taking medications on a chronic basis, unless you're broken with disease. And so that's a little reminder. There's a big distinction between people that are optimally healthy and die of old age and people that succumb to disease and die of disease. The goal is to never get disease by living an optimal health life and never need chronic medication. And that's not what doctors do. We are licensed drug pushers, right? We're licensed, but we're drug pushers. And so the need, though, is to change your life, to get off the medications. And so the little tip for today is, what is the most important thing for Americans that are not broken with disease? What is the most important health tip I can give you? I mean, what do you need to do? Now, first I have to do a clarifier. You're not broken with disease, and you're also not a crazy person doing booze, coke, drugs, psychopathic, psychological maniac, having 3 girlfriends, and you're married, or maybe boyfriends, whatever. If you're not that person doing all the wacko stuff, what do Americans need? You need to eat less carbs, and you need to exercise more. And so in the COVID crisis, so many people are at home, working from home. You have some extra time. Get off your butt and get out there and exercise. Now, people have been afraid to go outside. Debunk. You can't get the virus outside. Let me emphasize, can't. Because the air currents, it disperses it. If you stay 6 feet away from everyone, you won't get them. You can't get infected. Okay, if you walk through a crowd of people, which you're not supposed to be in anyway, and they're all sick, coughing their brains out, okay, you could get it outside. But short of that, this was a big mistake to close the parks, to close the outside places where people can stay spaced apart, because people are going nuts. So go outside and exercise. It's the number one positive health thing Americans need. If Americans understood how to exercise, but it's the number one thing that would make Americans more healthy. It's the number one thing that would make you resist gaining weight. It's not really a weight loss tool, but you can't exercise hard enough to lose weight effectively. And that's another topic, which we'll get to. But for now, exercise. That's the number one thing that'll resist you from aging rapidly and succumbing to disease as you get older. That's it for today. I'm Dr. Debunk, debunking medical myths, garbage, and crap spread by health professionals. But the last little thing is our sponsor, KSK Cold Spray. As you've seen in the other videos, this is an all-natural germicide. It's not the only one out there. Contrary to what you hear, you can't prevent the cold or flus. You can. This is the best product on the market today. It's an all-natural topical disinfectant. No different than oops, got to strike that. No different than a topical hand sanitizer. Only you can spray it on your mucous membranes without it burning like fire. And this product, based on the CDC's website, will work against COVID-19. So if you think you have any of the signs of getting sick with an upper respiratory infection, you spray KSK, it sterilizes your upper membranes, you're good to go. This product's been around 4 years now. We didn't just invent this, or I didn't invent this along with my partners, just to make money on COVID. It's been around a long time. We've made it much better in this last final year. Go to the website, kskcold.com. Go there and read about it and decide for yourself. That's it. I'm Dr. Debunk. Thanks for watching.